Hello, I'm Christian Stewart, a landscape designer with Shift Landscape Architecture based out of Guelph. Since February of this year, we've been working with the City of Barrie on a master plan and concept for Heritage Park. We are excited to be a part of this project and look forward to see where the discussion goes. The purpose of this presentation is to give an overview of the project intent, the work to date, site history and background, and to present three concepts that we'll be asking for feedback on. The reason for revisiting Heritage Park through a master plan and concept design process is to really re-energize what is a 30-year-old park, a 30-year-old public space that was never really fully realized over that period of time. But further to that, we also want to consider Heritage Park as a vital link between downtown and the waterfront, Kempenfelt Bay. The objectives that will guide us through this project. We'll posit that Heritage Park should be a part of a healthy and socially connected community. It should be inviting. It should be universally accessible for all ages and abilities. It should contribute to a contemporary downtown environment, and it ultimately really should be just function as a green oasis supported by a robust and resilient planting strategy. This project began in earnest in February of this year. At that point, previous work was reviewed and an extensive inventory and analysis was performed to gain insight into the history of the site and to provide influences going forward for the concepts. In addition to this, several meetings have taken place with city staff and key stakeholders to gain further knowledge on the performance of the park and the needs of its users. From this, three concepts were developed, which we'll be looking at today. The documented history of this part of Barrie's waterfront is an interesting one. For centuries, it was a part of a great transit route for the indigenous peoples who inhabited this area. And since Barrie's founding, it became more of an industry-dominated, railway-dominated waterfront. But as industry shifted elsewhere, the opportunity had arisen for opening up the waterfront, the central waterfront, to spaces for recreation, and to open up the possibility for enjoying the waterfront for the citizens of Barrie, and this is ultimately what led to Heritage Park being established. Looking briefly at the existing physical conditions at Heritage Park, we see that its location on the shores of Kempenfelt Bay, adjacent to downtown Barrie, linking a string of waterfront parks. Its location is really key to the level of importance it deserves. And in a city and a region that's rapidly growing and changing, it really is now the time to reflect on the park's role that it plays in the city, and going forward, what assets can be leveraged and what can we build upon to further strengthen that sort of the connection, the link between downtown and Kempenfelt Bay. Heritage Park is constructed on infill, a new piece of land, a relatively new landscape in Kempenfelt Bay. For us, what we like to do in our approach to a project is to mine the data of the existing landscape. In this case, what is a very young landscape, particular to the park boundaries itself. And ultimately to help inform design solutions and inspire new ways of experiencing the landscape for a design concept. So there is this missing history, as it is a new piece of land. There's a gap in its history. So what we wanted to do was look back to the region as a whole, to the city of Barrie as a whole, to see what presents itself as a unique landscape character. And what we found was that Barrie lies in Ontario at this kind of transition zone, geographically and maybe culturally. Between the glacial till of the south, the rock and the boulders, the loose till that makes up the landscape, the basic landscape of the south, and the exposed bedrock, the Canadian Shield of the north, and all the ecology, of course, that arises from those two landscapes. We took this idea of this transitional zone where these two landscapes meet. This attribute as a starting point to inform some of the ideas and the concepts to varying degrees. Due to its locality, Heritage Park and Barrie both, we can draw upon a rich palette of materials and processes. And that gives us the ability to extract and abstract these materials, textures and tones that will embed a legible sense of location in the park concept. And of course, this can be carried through the concepts to varying degrees, and of course, working in concert with a functioning park program. In addition to the inspiration provided by the regional landscape, the concepts propose bringing more clarity and structure to its circulation system. This will facilitate strong connections throughout the park, to the water, and beyond the site. All of the following concepts will seek to draw people into the park and the bay through established conduits such as Meridian Place, Mulcaster Street, and the Waterfront Trail system. Legible entries, further defined views, while building on the existing curvilinear path network, will ultimately strengthen the visitor experience and the vast possibilities with programming on the site in terms of those regionally important events that take place there. And another point to note as well is what we want to do is enhance that connection of water and providing good structure and clarity for that, and clarity in that structure, because water has such a benefit to mental health and to the well-being of visitors to the park. So what we feel is a good fundamental of that is to provide those and strengthen those connections. The following three concepts are grounded in common motivations. However, they differ in result. They frame possibilities of investment and intervention through what has been deemed as a refresh concept, a rehab concept, and a rethink concept. The refresh concept is built on strategic upgrades that complete but also enhance the intent of Heritage Park as it was established 30 years ago. The rehab concept provides an opportunity to reconsider certain aspects of the park and define it on a contemporary lens in waterfront park design. The rethink concept offers a look at a total reinvestment in a public space that provides new ways for visitors to interact and new ways to experience Barrie and its region. First, we'll start with the refresh concept. The refresh concept has redesigned entries, an update to the path network to better support the programming that currently takes place at Heritage Park. Redesigned water feature, a splash pad, to bring that system up to a more contemporary standard, and new ideas for planting that will better support ecological function, but also introduce an idea of seasonality to the park experience. And we have an image here as well of the existing fireplaces that are set up during winter. So these are the types of ideas we want to enhance and leverage and carry throughout this concept. These precedent images illustrate some of the ideas that you would see with the refresh concept. For instance, a renovated splash pad, new ways to view the bay, new path materials, Any introduction of wood and stone across the site as a more resilient and placemaking material scheme. As we look at the plan for the refresh concept, we see updated entries to the park, just to give a sense of entry, to really heighten that sense of entry. A primary entry plaza across from Meridian Place, to really strengthen that connection and to provide a place for spillover spectators. We see accessible paths throughout the site. A new planting strategy that takes into account some ecological function and seasonality. A renovated water feature, splash pad, that's better integrated back into the park as a whole. And two overlooks at strategic points of the park, to give people a place to gather and locate themselves, and to heighten those views out across the bay. What this section is demonstrating to us is the importance of water on the site, and how those connections are made. So what we have is the water feature at the one end, the renovated water feature in this concept. The existing, what we've termed as the bridge, that separates the water feature from the creek or the stream that meanders across the site, with the addition of a small viewing dock overlooking that and the naturalized gardens beyond. The next concept we're going to look at is the rehab concept, essentially the middle concept in terms of investment and intervention. For the rehab concept, grander entries are proposed comparatively to the previous concept. Updated circulation that better stitches together the park and adds more functionality to the programming. Redesigned water feature with nods to the regional landscape, some of those materials and tones we've previously mentioned. A planting scheme that does the same, and it provides a sense of seasonality to the park experience. And stronger connections to Kempenfelt Bay are proposed as well, along with the introduction of some topography to enhance views and to provide different ways to gather. An image is included on the slide as well, of the possibility of a linear event space that can host sort of art markets and other things, host those crowds quite well, and of course creating a space that's much easier to maintain than if it was on turf, if these events took place on turf. So I will, in a couple slides ahead on the plan, point out where this linear event space is. These precedents illustrate some of the possibilities that you could see with this concept, with the rehab concept, with the introduction of stone and textured paving, large boulders that act as markers in the landscape, a new, more robust planting strategy, seat walls throughout the site, different ways to gather again, and a boardwalk that is centrally located, providing better visual access to Kempenfelt Bay. Similar to the previous concept, the rehab concept reconsiders the entries. The primary entry plaza across from Meridian Place becomes more of a destination. It is larger, but becomes more of a destination itself, and hints at what's to come in the rest of the park. It's bounded by seat walls on one side and large stone blocks on the other side, that provide different ways to view the site, different ways to gather, maybe inspire some spontaneous play as well. And they're on this north-south orientation, and that's picked up throughout the site. And this is a bit of a place-making device. The paths across the site are accessible. The spit, the breakwater next to the transient marina, has been sort of redefined as a bit more of a sort of an attractive feature, a destination once you enter the park, with seating and a wood deck at the end. The linear event space that was previously mentioned is more accommodating to events that require setting up stalls, like an art market or something to that effect. It's just it accommodates crowds a lot better. It's tree lined. It's more accommodating to the sort of the maintenance scheme that we're trying to aim for in this park. The water feature better integrates some of the forms that you see across the site. It's larger than the previous concept as well. It also has as a focal point a water wall feature that is an accessible way to view and to enjoy the water. Across from that, across the bridge, is a viewing dock, larger than the previous concept, that overlooks the stream and the naturalized garden, that takes on that planting community strategy, where you get more of an idea about the seasonality of native plants, and also taking into account not only a native planting scheme, but a planting scheme that it suits an urban environment. And this naturalized garden also has footpaths throughout, so you can actually enter the garden and not just view from the edge. One more feature, or feature of interest, is the addition of some topography at two locations in this concept, just to give, again, more ways to gather, different set up different views across the site. And essentially, these are mounds with seat walls sliced through. And again, that's just to further give a sense of some of those views that are possible, not only back towards downtown, but out over the bay as well. In this perspective image, what is shown is a view of the entry, the primary entry space across from Meridian Place. So here we can see it starts to become a destination in itself, and really kind of draws people into the park and builds a connection back into the rest of the city, into downtown and Meridian Place. Large glacial erratics, large boulders that sort of act as a focal point. You can see the stone blocks that I had mentioned previously when we looked at the plan. So again, just integrating some of those elements and materials to create more of a destination at the edge of the park. What we see in this perspective image is the water feature with the rehab concept, and what we're trying to illustrate with this, again, it's that materiality integrating of planting. We see some wood, we see the stone blocks again. We see that there's an ability to sort of wade into a little bit of water, to experience water in different ways with bubblers and splashing and jets, but also a more accessible, giving some height to the water in terms of a water wall, so it's more universally accessible. In this perspective image, our view is from the wood deck next to the so-called bridge on site. It's where the stream ultimately starts before meandering towards the pond and out to the bay. So what we're seeing here is just adding more functionality to that bridge in terms of some seating and gathering, and again, strengthening views across to some of that naturalized garden that we think is important to introduce in terms of adding that seasonal experience, and new ways to see native plants in an urban environment. In this section, what it's illustrating is some of that tiered the tiered seating, and steps down to the existing pond, and then across to stone block edge, up into a new shade structure with some new architecture. And ultimately, what we're illustrating here is that sort of new connections, physical and visual, to water that we think is important. That provides that sense of place and relief in an urban environment, and not just out over the bay, but even interior to the site. And here we see another section for the rehab concept, and this is at the Kempenfelt Bay edge. So we can see some of it, these pockets of planting that provide a little bit more of an ecological function to that edge. Certainly more than what is there now. And of course the boardwalk that was mentioned, that provides views out into the bay and a new way to interact with the bay. And as well as we were looking at the plan, I had mentioned some introduced topography, and you can see here it's not to great height, but even just a little just strengthens that connection to the water, and again provides just new ways to gather and seat, even some soft seating looking at back into the site, and then or across the bay as well. The third and final concept is the rethink concept, and what this concept allows for is the opportunity to create a park that is a showcase in contemporary waterfront park design. Investment at this level will create more programmatic opportunities, more placemaking opportunities that will enhance its unique location, unique and desirable location. Taking some of those fundamentals that we've talked about previously, such as geology, local geology and ecology, and amplifying that through material use throughout the park in an urban environment in a dramatic way. A couple of images to point out on this slide show the opportunities at the shoreline to, as we are trying to draw people to the shoreline. At Kempenfelt Bay, what we want to introduce to kind of counter that is some ecological functionality, and you'll see more of that with this concept. These are a few precedent images that show some of the possibilities across the site with this concept. What you'll see is bolder use of materials and forms, more contemporary form in the shade structures. It's permanent or semi-permanent, community-driven entrepreneurial market stalls. Lighting used to more of an artistic effect to act as a safe attraction during the evening, and decisions being made at the shoreline that are both for social and ecological reasons. The rethink concept takes the ideas of the previous two concepts and pushes them a bit further to generate a concept that is a destination as well as a crucial and necessary public amenity. More obvious and enjoyable entries, much like the previous concepts. These ones a bit of a different form, bit of a more interest in the form, much larger as well. The main entry plaza across from Meridian Place, as has been dealt with in the previous two concepts, this one just pushes it further. It's much larger. It's bounded by seat walls, but also a trellis at one end that speaks to the architecture of the canopy at Meridian Place. It operates as a bit more of a it's well integrated into the park and back into the city as a whole, but is much more of a standalone piece as well. It's well accommodating to larger crowds that for events that may take place there or in the adjacent lawn, which is larger in this concept, or for spillover crowds as well for events that take place at Meridian Place. The plaza in this instance is iconic. it functions as a little bit of a diorama, a scene constructed of the local ingredients. Again, harkening back to the regional landscape. In this instance, we have stone and trees and water that create this scene and gives you an idea as to what you'll see in the rest of the park as well as you enter. There is a connection. I could have mentioned this previously as well, because all concepts retain the vehicular connection between the two parking lots, and they all deal with the safety of that as well, in terms of enhancing that linear event space. In this rethink concept, there is a more obvious overlay of ecological performance that creates pockets of softened shoreline with some non-intrusive, in terms of views, planting along the shore, and a much larger naturalized garden as well. So similar to the previous concepts, but there's more of it. There's more ways to access it. There's more ways to enjoy it and take that in. And again, in terms of the ecological performance, that just it provides more habitat for insects and birds, and really introducing some of that given landscape of the region into something that is legible and digestible to the visitor, and enjoyed by the visitor in a way that's manageable in a very urbanized area. The water feature retains some of those fundamentals that the previous two concepts, and yet is much larger. Just integrated back into those more interesting forms of the rest of the park in this concept. Just more energized, more places for seating, more water walls, and more opportunities to experience water in a different way. The overlooks in this concept are larger and just more integrated back into stone and planting, and again back into the water, as there's a bit of an overhang. So you really get that introduction into the bay as well, and really focusing the views for visitors, and really allowing them to explore and get to the edge, and take in those views to the bay. This perspective image shows what's happening in the center of that of the entry plaza across from Meridian Place, the main entry plaza. And again, it's a bit of a scenographic approach with taking some of those ingredients, those elements that exist in the regional landscape, with the stone, the native planting, the water that's so important on this site, and combining those in a way that sort of creates a sense of delight for those visiting the park. This perspective image illustrates the sort of the central area at the waterfront, where there is a shade structure in the background of this perspective shown. There are large stone blocks for sort of informal seating and gathering. There's wood introduced as well for the overlook decks, and there's that sort of ecological overlay of some adding some planting at the edge, just for habitat and to sort of heighten that experience of the shoreline, and to sort of counter all the traffic we want there too. As long as we want to make this a real social aspect of the park, we also want to be sure and be careful to introduce some of those ecological aspects as well. What this section illustrates is that really the importance of water to Heritage Park, not only through Kempenfelt Bay, but again through that water feature. The the water feature being a place of play and enjoyment, being a splash pad, but also an artistic edge to it as well, and that it's a feature to be passively enjoyed as well. And sort of drawing that connection between the two through planting and wood decks. And this section as well just kind of further illustrates what the previous section was showing, and sort of integrating planting and habitat where we can at the edge, and improving that, making that a much improved sort of function in terms of the ecology on site compared to what is there now. More ways to view the bay and feel connected to the bay, and then some informal seating as well, being shown in this through the stone blocks, which hopefully provide a place that kids can clamor on, that can inspire spontaneous play, but just also different ways to gather and to enjoy the site. As this presentation concludes, I will sort of briefly touch upon the next steps, and after this meeting, this PIC, you will have 2 weeks to provide comments based on the concepts that were provided here. This closes June 11th. We will review those concepts, and staff will be preparing a report to council in September to provide analysis of feedback and recommendations, and then council will provide direction on that. A final master plan concept will be presented at a second PIC this fall to further collect feedback, and a final report to council for approvals in late fall. As this concludes our presentation for today, I want to say thank you for participating, and we look forward to the feedback. Thank you.